people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the mother relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Former champion Michaela caught wind that Terry Harper would be moving down from 147 to 135. And she said, not a good move in my opinion. Harper looked stacked at 147 and 154. Going down to lightweight will be extremely hard and unhealthy after putting on all that muscle. The competition won't get easier either. We'll see. Is she right? Is Terry Harper making a mistake? A miscalculation going from 147 down to 135. The thing is that at 147, she just took on Sandy Ryan, and she got ragdolled. She got manhandled.
She wasn't able to win a belt from Sandy. I don't think she'd be able to win a belt from Lauren Price.
Natasha Jonas doesn't want to run it back with her. Natasha Jonas doesn't want to give her the time of day, so not much luck in that department either. I would give Terry decent odds against Ivana Habazin, reigning WBC champion, but I'd wager that Ivana has other plans for other fights that don't involve Terry. And what would it cost Matchroom to get Ivana in the ring with Terry, to voluntarily give Terry a world title shot she doesn't deserve at this time? You say that fluctuating in weight, that after putting on all that muscle, it's not a good idea to move down in weight. On one end, you say that, but on the other end, the girls do fluctuate in weight a lot more than the guys do, and it doesn't affect them as adversely as it affects the guys.
Not really.
I understand what Michaela is trying to say, that this could have an adverse effect on Terry Harper's performance, but Terry's just kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. In truth, I don't even think the weight is the biggest issue so much as the depth of the division. The current state at the weight at 135.
Who's there?
Carolyn Dubois, Beatrice Ferreira, Rhiannon Dixon, and a host of unbeaten up-and-comers that are coming through. The landscape is changing at lightweight after Katie Taylor bottlenecked this division for years, ruling as its undisputed champion, uninterrupted. Things are changing.
And we don't know whether or not Terry Harper can deal. At this point, Terry's a veteran. She was a champion at 130, a champion at 154 briefly. Now she wants to mix and mingle at 135. But the talent pool,
I think the bigger issue is who she'd have to face at 135, more so than whether or not she can make it healthy.
She's got a work cut out for her.
That even if by some chance she can get down there, match fit, and she's not depleted for doing it, she's still got some stiff competition in the lightweight division.
It's not different anywhere else, though. It's no different than 147, 140.
You often hear me say that the true talent and depth in women's boxing, it deepens the lower you go. And that's just the situation. There's nothing that can be done about that.
It was never going to be easy.
At any of those weights, it's not easy to pick up an alphabet title. It's not easy to win one from a reigning champion, and I suppose that's the difference between all the divisions below 154 and the divisions above.
The divisions above 154 are barren.
The divisions below are teeming with talent, with champions and contenders and good fighters all around, some more experienced than others, but essentially it was never going to be easy.
So it just is what it is.
I remember after Rhiannon Dixon, current reigning WBO champion, won the WBO title, the newly vacated WBO title. I remember that Eddie Hearn said he would like to put Rhiannon in the ring with Terry Harper. I vaguely recall hearing that.
Let's say he does.
Relatively speaking, Terry stands a better chance against Rhiannon than she would against Lauren Price.
And she has a better chance of getting Rhiannon in the ring than she would Natasha Jonas. She hasn't been able to get Natasha to fight her again.
So when you think about the current state at the weight at 147 versus the current state at the weight At 135, yes, there are difficulties and challenges, but there are also some opportunities.
That's the way to look at it.
I'm not even saying she would beat Rhiannon Dixon. I'm just saying comparatively, she's got a better shot at beating Rhiannon than some other fighters that are above 135.
Tough decisions.
Terry and her team had to make one. They were forced to after she was beaten from pillar to post, overpowered by Sandy Ryan at 147. Do you want to stay there? Do you think you can hang with these girls?
Tough decisions.
Team Harper had to make one, and they did. They're going to 135. In men's lightweight news, after Javante Davis's knockout win of Frank Martin, who everybody picked Javante to beat, including his critics, the PBC via their social media account posted an image of Javante afterwards saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, the face of boxing."
How is he the face of boxing? He's not the top draw in the sport.
He isn't even ranked amongst the highest earners in the sport of boxing. That's saying that Canelo Alvarez has more fans buying more fights more often than Javante's fans do, which is why he earns so much more than Javante. He's quite literally the top earning boxer in the sport. Behind him is Anthony Joshua.
Anthony has more customers than Javante, and as a result, Anthony makes more money than Javante. So if these two boxers have more customers, more paying customers than Javante, how could he be the face?
Well, that's the thing. He's not. They just say that, hoping that at some point the rest of the world will agree with them.
That's literally what they're doing.
And what do you think this past weekend's box office fight brought in at the box office? What kind of numbers are you expecting?
1 million? 500,000?
For a Frank Martin fight, with piracy being what it is, so easy to take in a box office fight without having to pay for it, do you think Javante Davis came anywhere close? Anywhere near those numbers?
Well, he did last year with Ryan.
Yeah, last year. But that was last year, and that was with Ryan. What have I been saying?
You won't see numbers like that again with a guy like Frank Martin.
Thus, it's a delusion. A shared delusion to suggest that Javante Davis is the face of the sport, the face of boxing here today, based on what?
Knocking over stiffs and people that everybody picks him to beat?
I saw one Twitter account say that Tank Davis clears out every division up to 140 and even 147 except for boots.
Except he didn't clear out any division from 130 up to 147.
And he's coming up on 30 years old. No, he didn't clear out 130 pounds. There were 3 other champions there. He didn't fight any of them. Currently at 135, he didn't clear that one out either. There are 3 champions there, and he hasn't fought any of them.
He's not going to.
All he ever did at 140 was win a regular title, not even a full title, a regular title from an unheralded nobody in Mario Barrios. But based on this careful matchmaking,
we're supposed to believe he clears every division from 130 up to 147.
Then why hasn't he done it?
Because he can't.
Because they want him to be like a Baltimore version of Naoya Inoue. They want to pretend that he's doing the things that a Naoya Inoue is doing, or a Terrence Crawford is doing, and Alexander Usyk is doing. They want me and you to think of him the way we think of them without him having to do what they did.
Because they're undisputed. They've been undisputed more than once, where Javante has never even been unified, much less undisputed.
He goes in there and beats who he's supposed to beat, then his fans act surprised, like they didn't know what was going to happen.
Well, what, you thought Frank Martin was going to win?
No, not even Frank Martin thought he was going to win that fucking fight.
Then why are they blowing it out of proportion?
Because this isn't about boxing for them. I saw one guy say that Javante Davis is the greatest lightweight of all time. Yes, Tank would beat the shit out of Duran.
He didn't even beat the shit out of Isaac Cruz.
He decisioned him. He definitely decisioned him. But he didn't beat the shit out of him. He didn't ragdoll him.
But I'm supposed to believe he ragdolls Duran.
These are not boxing fans. And this is not about boxing. Not to them.
These are identity politics. The reason they go so hard for Javante Davis is because they identify with him. And whatever it is he represents, or whatever they see in him that they also see in themselves.
That's why they go so hard for him online. And that's why there's never any shortage of faceless Twitter bots and Twitter accounts that'll randomly start arguing with you if you say anything disparaging about Javante Davis. But the truth is...
And the truth hurts.
What you think doesn't matter. And what you say online doesn't count. Because you're not making it count where it counts the most. And that's at the box office. You dust bunnies don't actually buy Javante Davis's fights.
You're poor.
If you really wanted him to be the face of boxing and for him to get there, you dust bunnies have got to stop surfing those illegal streams and buy his pay-per-views, because if you don't, he's not the face of anything.
And he never will be.
He's coming up on 30. 30 years old. He still hasn't had a unification match.
I'm supposed to believe he's the greatest lightweight over Duran.
Why? Because he comes from the same crummy neighborhood as you? Who gives a fuck about you? Who gives a fuck about your crummy neighborhood?
You're poor.
If this is a joint effort from a community within the sport to elevate Javante Davis to the status of an iconoclast, then your community doesn't have the buying power.
You don't spend no money.
I saw unbeaten up-and-comer in the lightweight division, former Olympian Keyshawn Davis said, "I'm trying to fight that Baltimore dude because he's fooling all you people. Guys are starting to think he's unbeatable, but it's always that one diamond in the rough." I shared the ring with this midget twice, at 16 and 21 years old. I never had one problem with him. I'm 25 years old now. Fuck I'm waiting to fight him for? Tell him play that tough man shit with somebody from Norfolk.
I'll bet you Javante doesn't fight him.
Or his top-ranked stablemate Shakur Stevenson, who just so happens to be a champion at this weight.
You don't think that Keyshawn deserves that opportunity? Don't give it to him. Then give it to Shakur. Fight him.
Shakur is a quick boxer, a good guy, but do you think he would engage you enough that'd make it an entertaining fight? Or if you fought him, do you feel like it would be a bad fight because you'd be chasing him all night?
You know how it would go. Everybody in this room would know how it would go.
So does that mean you shouldn't fight him? Based on what people think going into the fight, we shouldn't see the fight. I thought that's what we were all here to do.
See the fights.
I mean, you literally gave Frank Martin, a less proven fighter who's never even been a champion, you gave him the opportunity.
You didn't leave it to the imagination with him, but with Shakur Stevenson, we just have to imagine what would happen.
We don't get to see it.
We won't.
Do you know who he is talking about fighting?
Who?
A guy we already saw him fight. A guy we already saw him beat. He's talking about running it back with Ryan Garcia.
What was the conversation about with your number one fan in the ring after the fight?
Oh, Ryan? He's crazy. He's crazy. Talk about rematch. He said I was the best at 135 to 42. He said that.
So what?
He said that. Say he want to fight me again. I'll kick his ass again.
Why am I not surprised?
Javante Davis can't do big numbers on his own, even solid numbers on his own. He can't do it. His best bet to get there is to run it back with Ryan, because his audience and the one that supposedly supports him,
They don't have the buying power.
no matter how much you say it online or how many people you argue with, no matter how many content creators try to gaslight the boxing community at large,
He never proved he was the best at 130 or 135 or 140.
he's not about to.
He's not the top earning boxer in the sport, the second or even the third highest earning boxer in the sport.
Doesn't have the commercial appeal, the image, the endorsements, the sponsorships from big name brands. He has none of those things.
Nothing.
All he has is an overinflated vote of confidence from a bunch of people whose opinions don't count anyway.
So at 30 years old, he should have more to show for it than a vote of confidence. He should have fought a lot of these people by now.
As many times as you guys want to go online and proclaim him the best at anything, that shit ain't gonna fly, because I'm gonna shoot that plane down every chance I get.
Every time.
The limp dick media doesn't want to do it because they're afraid if they grill Javante Davis and ask him the uncomfortable questions, they won't get access. Luckily for me, I don't rely on access to fighters to keep the lights on.
I don't need it.
I can call a spade in all the ways they won't, because I don't rely on kissing people's asses to create content, and he's a hype job.
They're the biggest I've ever seen.
All he really represents is everything that's wrong with boxing and America's decline in the sport, that you've grown so desperate you would actually put this protected fighter on a pedestal.
What are you telling me, that boxing is bigger in America now than it used to be? No, it isn't. Fighters like him are the reason.
He's a coward.
Coward.
The ambassador for cowards. The poster child for them.
Coward.
Cowardly media that refuses to point it out, refuses to put him on the spot and put him in the hot seat, put him under pressure.
Coward.
I don't give a shit about your identity politics and what you identify with, what you think he represents for your community, because your community isn't spending money.
Coward.
Mine is. Javante Davis actually needs more people like me and less people like you.
You're broke.
You're poor. You're the digital equivalent of a shoplifter.
Purse snatcher.
What actual change can a piece of shit like you affect?
Pieces of shit like you.
Nobody gets far with people like you in their corner. Elsewhere in the world of boxing, in relation to this past weekend's action on the undercard of Davis versus Martin, you saw what was then unbeaten up-and-comer Gary Antoine Russell, the younger brother of Gary Russell, suffer his first professional loss to former champion Alberto Puello in what was a forgettable fight, albeit an evenly fought fight.
For what this fucking show costed, man.
The Matchroom show running parallel to this one that didn't cost $75 to watch had better fights.
Another American hype job.
I remember over a year ago, Gary Antoine Russell was supposed to have already fought Alberto Puello back when Alberto still was WBA champion, and he declined that opportunity, saying, when being a student of the game, you must consider the fact that every step contestant takes is more than just self-gratification, and each and every last one of us do it for keeps.
Huh?
In other words, Puello's got to catch up to me. He is behind me. No need to look back when the direction you're going is forward.
Oh, is that where he's going?
Where he went? When the subject of this fight was first broached over a year ago, Puello was reigning WBA champion at the time. This was a world title opportunity, a title shot for Gary Russell, just for him to turn it down and end up fighting the guy anyway, over a year later, for no title at all.
So, like, what are you, a fucking moron?
Your team, are they asleep at the wheel? Are they stupid or something? You turned this fight down over a year ago just to take it for no world title, a year later.
And they wonder why I say that the American boxing scene and the American boxer really isn't what he used to be.
Current reigning WBC super lightweight champion Haney said it best. He said, Gary Russell is shit. His older brother was nice, but he's some dog shit.
Why are we wasting time on this nobody?
Because for a second there, for a brief moment, the usual suspects were starting to hype him up, talking about Gary. Everybody better look out for Gary.
Watch out.
The guys at 140 better be careful. The actual champions and the people that have actually done something, as opposed to Gary, who's done nothing.
It's always the same.
And I remember that Gary Antoine Russell, in the build-up of this weekend's fight, was setting his sights on Devin Haney. That fight that he just had, that he just lost, was a WBC final eliminator to crown Devin Haney's next mandatory challenger, and you didn't even make it that far.
Wow.
Is it the end of the world that Gary Antoine Russell lost? No, it isn't. But that's really up to him, and he has to show his worth, his ability, that he can rebound off of this. My point is,
Guess he's not as good as you guys said he was, huh?
he hadn't beaten anybody worth talking about. He hadn't beaten anybody of note. And the fact that he walked away from a world title opportunity was the red flag for me.
What kind of unbeaten up-and-comer, what kind of contender that makes his way to contender status doesn't want to fight for an alphabet title? What kind of shit is that?
Kind of shit you see in the American boxing scene these days. That's the kind of shit that is.
All about the shortcuts.
Getting all fucking philosophical like he's Socrates.
Oh, pardon me, Aristotle. I thought this was boxing.
Rebounding off his first professional loss could be difficult because the PBC isn't doing that many shows this year. And if you're relying on them to get you back out there, well, that could take a while.
They're supposed to be doing a show in August.
If they're lucky, they will have done a grand total of 4 shows this year in 8 months.
Wow.
If he's lucky, he'll get on that show, get the chance to rebound. I'm not sure that he will.
We'll see.
Or maybe they can get him on what is supposed to be the Spence versus Fundora fight, if that fight even happens, that show.
We'll see.
The American boxing scene and the American boxer just isn't what he used to be. And I say it all the time.
You get a world title opportunity, you're supposed to grab that with both hands. At least now we know why Gary didn't.